Well, she'd achieved a certain degree of success as an athlete. In fact, in 1965, she won the All-England Pentathlon Championship. And she knew that Mary Rand had been to Millfield. And she really wanted to balance herself up a little, because in her pursuit of athletics, she had neglected herself academically. And it was almost becoming pathetic.
We had a son who was somewhat behind in his work at that stage, but had considerable athletic promise. And we wanted to find a school where he would be able to develop in diverse ways, according to which way his bent might develop.
He's the youngest of our three children, and we hoped that the wide perspectives offered at Millfield would encourage him to choose his own line rather than following in my husband's line or in mine.
At the age of 13, I realised he still couldn't read. I knew that special attention was paid to word blindness, which my boy was his problem, was paid to at Millfield. I knew that I couldn't get him into any other school. I just couldn't get him out of the C stream, even in the school he was. So I thought, well, other people can get places here. Why not us? So I wrote.
The first thing to note about Millfield is that it's the most expensive school in Britain. Fees vary according to the parents' means, but £1,000 per head per year is about right. The pupils live in country houses scattered over 30 square miles of Somerset and come to school in a fleet of buses. The money certainly isn't spent on luxurious buildings. It says something for the salesmanship of the headmaster that he can charge £300 a term to teach in Nissen huts. It's not bricks and mortar they're paying for. It's this little lot. There are over 160 teachers and coaches on the staff, one staff member for every 5 pupils. They claim the teaching program is infinitely variable, that every timetable is individually tailored for the child. Some cynics, perhaps in jealousy, call it a school for slow boys and fast girls. Some a place for the dull children of the rich, the brilliant scholar and the first-class games player. But to those must be added a number who have neither money, nor brains, nor muscle, taken in because the headmaster regards them as a responsibility, or perhaps a challenge to his system. A class containing more than 8 pupils is a rarity. More often they are taught in groups of 4 or 5. Occasionally you come across a lesson being held in a sort of ice cream kiosk, a classroom built for one.
So if you just read that passage to me now, starting in a nice, clear voice.
Tom Sawyer.
Everyone, staff and pupils, refers to the headmaster, R.J.O. Meyer, as boss, and as the head of an enterprise of this nature, it's the only word.
Yeah, we'll leave that.
Boss, how do you see Millfield fits into the educational picture today?
I suppose it does fit in.
What is its special importance, would you say?
I'm not sure it's important. I'm not sure it fits. I think fitting is quite a good word, because we try to fit here the curriculum to suit each child, rather than say you are in 4A and 4A does this and that means you. I think that's the whole secret of it, very small group teaching, and finding out what the boy needs, telling him what he's got to do in order to live if necessary, but finding out what he wants to do to get where he aims to be, and arranging a timetable to suit him. So we teach everybody at his own level, or from his own level, and at his own pace, regardless of whether he's learning the alphabet or toying with a calculus at 2.5. I mean, it's like that.
Such profanation calls for swift redress.
IQs at Millfield vary from 85 to 190. Musician, artist, scientist, sportsman, they'll cater for you here. There's only one thing you'll not be able to escape: work. You sit right under the master's eye, and Millfield expects results.
With apricots and tuberous, with purple grapes, figs and mulberries. The honey bags steal from the humble bees.
Yeah, no, we've got to get them round somewhere, haven't we?
Whatever the outside of the school looks like, the inside is dripping with teaching aids. This is the number 2 language laboratory.
Répétez, s'il vous plaît. J'ai mis mon manteau d'hiver. J'ai mis mon manteau d'hiver. Mon manteau d'hiver. Mon manteau d'hiver.
And they teach rather more than Latin and French. Any one, in fact, of 35 languages.
I've got Afrikaans, Arabic, Persian, Hindi, Italian, Danish, Dutch, Portuguese, and Urdu.
For all the boasts of the comprehensives, there is probably no school in Britain which provides for a greater range of intelligence. Meyer believes that brilliant scholars need handling every bit as delicately as backward ones. They're taught in small groups at their own furious pace.
Yes, that's the amplitude of, is it B minus A?
I suppose giving them the right amount of intellectual food is one of the problems, is it?
Oh yes, I have a particular boy now doing Cambridge scholarships in a few weeks. Over the summer holiday, he handed me a award of holiday work, which was very well done, but in fact, to study each sheet, I think it was 3 1/4 inches thick when I collected it, to study each sheet and to discuss look at the maths of it, was in fact quite a lengthy business. And of course, a boy of this caliber, if there are questions that he's not doing successfully, you can bet that they are very difficult problems.
Charles Gobble. Listen to the ending of that one. Gobble.
G-O-B-B-A-B-L-E.
Went wrong a little bit there.
At the other end are the word blind pupils, who in many schools will be written off as just plain dumb, unteachable.
The boys that you saw working here are all a fair bit above average intelligence and are just severely handicapped by the fact they're unable to get anything down in writing.
Is this a common fault?
It is quite common, yes. There are very many boys coming to us at Millfield who have quite high IQs and yet are severely handicapped with regard to their written work.
What sort of treatment would be available for these boys if they were in an ordinary school? Would they tend to drift very far behind?
Yes, I think they would. Large classes would certainly mean that they couldn't really get the sort of treatment they're getting here.
At many schools, work tends to be a dirty word. Some of these girls were unhappy at their old schools because they couldn't work fast enough.
I wasn't very happy. I didn't get any sort of satisfaction out of work, which I had done before.
Why was this? Because you could, let's call a spade. Were you much too bright for the class?
Well, you could say that, yes.
And how did this affect you?
I just had to sit back and wait for the others. We had some very sort of good teachers who were willing to understand that you could work faster than others, and so would let us do a little bit more work or set some interesting project that you could do something extra on. But a lot of the staff made you sit and wait while everybody else caught up. And then there'd be, of course, people lower down as well who would have to be pushed, so that there were a few people in the middle who were happy, but at the top and at the bottom there was definitely not much sort of ease.
What level of work are you working at now?
Well, I'm working for A-levels this summer.
This summer?
This summer.
And what age will you be when you take A-level?
15.
My last school was a very sort of typical girls' boarding school. It was rather Victorian, and I was taught how to be decorous. And it was important that we dressed correctly and that we ate good food. And academically, it didn't really matter at all, because we were probably all going to get married in any case. And we had our 13 pairs of shoes and our bulletproof stockings and our leather gloves on Sundays and our 2 hymn books. And work was very much on the side. We had 8 lessons a day, but you didn't really have to work. Or at least this is my trouble there. I found I didn't really have to work.
Girls like those get to Millfield through Boss's skill as a Robin Hood. He persuades the rich to help the deserving poor.
I think I've convinced some of them that it is possible and necessary to save these brilliant children from the primary schools from turning to delinquency and frustration, and turning them into human beings, and eventually first-class honours men who are not just eggheads, but human beings who are wanted on the boards. And people will do this if you ask them nicely enough. It is true that sometimes I have to, what you might call Robin Hood them, I think you used the expression, but not rob them, but invite them rather firmly to do their duty, and they do it. Sometimes I have to say to them, well, your son is not really an economic proposition to teach. After all, if he occupies the services of one highly trained master on a 1,500 a year or more salary, the fees should be 1,500 a year plus the ordinary sort of school fees. I also might have to say to him, well, having done that and having done the job for you, I'm still left with a boy who's not going to in any way distinguish himself or contribute to the school. And if you could bring my IQ average up a little bit, I'm paying for another one, half another one, 10 other ones if you like. It would suit me very well indeed. But do you mean to say I've got to do it? I said, no, but I will tell him I'm expecting to. I'm not making a condition of entry. I've already accepted your son.
Let's go through a few of Dad's occupations, Sue.
My father's a headmaster at a residential ESN school. And we don't have a lot of money, teachers never really do. My brother's just finished at a small boarding school and he's now going up to university, so he still has more fees to pay.
No, he's certainly not in a position to pay 1,000 a year for nothing.
Oh, goodness, no. My father's a fisher on the British Railways, and we certainly couldn't afford to bring me here, you know. But I'm having a grant from Boss as well. My parents are teachers, and we couldn't afford, because teachers don't have enough pay anyway.
Mine's director of a transport firm. I'm not here on a scholarship.
He's paying for all that,
yeah.
isn't he?
Yes, so my father is retired from being in a diplomatic service, and now he hasn't got so much money to pay for me, and I'm on a semi-scholarship.
My grandfather is Haile Selassie, and my father is paying for me here.
Further right! Wait! March! Left! 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 Right! Left!
Hello, all stations. This is 0. Radio check. Over.
E117 charge 3.
In some ways, Millfield is utterly conventional. For discipline's sake, corps is compulsory, and they're equipped rather better than Sandhurst. Social education is not forgotten. Once a week, there are dancing classes, compulsory for girls. For boys, they don't have to be. With 4 boys to every girl, it's as well to grab a partner when you get the chance. This is one of the rather carefully controlled occasions when boys and girls get together. There are 47 nationalities at the school and every social class. To such mixed friendships, parents have occasionally raised objections.
I did have a somewhat elderly parent of a very distinguished line. He was, we call him the Duke of X, who said, do you mean to say that my son, the heir to the title, might meet, mix with, get interested in people like a chimney sweep's daughter? And I did say to him, well, you needn't worry too much, because the chimney sweep is not a snob, and he's not going to complain that his brilliant daughter runs a risk of meeting and mixing, perhaps getting interested in a rather soft, puddingy boy like your son. And the interesting thing is that he went purple. I thought I'd killed him. He went purple. He went the colour of that thing there, and I thought he'd gone. I nearly sent to the doctor. His wife looked at him, thought he'd survived. Anyhow, he turned to his wife and said, my dear, I believe the headmaster's right. He started to recover. I believe he's right. I believe he's right. By gad, he is right. Well, now, look, I was asking him to take my elder son, who's failing for Eton, and I've got 3 more sons and a daughter. I'd like to take the lot.
Sunday morning, before lunch, is the time for what is rather unhappily called integration. The boys receive the girls from a neighbouring house for coffee. Boss draws a sharp line. between such meetings and what he calls a private assignation. Private meetings are one of the capital sins. Opinions about the amount of reason in these rules vary according to the heat of the blood.
Well,
people have to hold their hands and walking around in the grounds. I mean, that's a pretty awful one for the start. I mean, if you want to walk around with a girl, it's very difficult to keep up a conversation every bit of free time. You've got to hold their hand or put your arm around their neck or something like that. Otherwise, I mean, there's nothing to talk about.
I don't agree with that too much. I think that rather lowers the tone of the place in some way. I see nothing wrong in boys walking around with girls as we do in Millfield, but holding hands, I think, is probably just taking it a bit too far.
I feel there's too much supervision as hops and things, as hops and dancers. I feel as if a couple are going to get up to anything, they're going to get up to it regardless.
You get people going around poking people in the back and saying, would you keep 6 inches apart, please?
Yes.
I mean, that's stupid.
At Millfield, there are none of these reputed homosexuals. I think
you get a far higher rate of homosexuality coming out of the public schools than to educational, co-educational schools such as this.
There had to make a difference between a sort of public appearance with a boyfriend and a private assignation, as he calls it. Now, just what is the difference between these two things?
Well, private assignation is really just sort of going off with them into a classroom and having a good time, more or less. But he likes to feel, well, both him and Miss Warner feel like boys going out with girls because it's natural, and that's more or less what, you know, it makes it more of a sort of relaxed atmosphere if everybody's quite happy.
But they like to know that, yeah, public appearances, when you ask, you have to, the boy has to ask boss, and the girl has to ask Miss Warner.
If you're going to the cinema, you have to get boss's permission. The boy has to ask his boss if he can have permission to take a girl to the cinema, and the girl has to ask her house mother. And the girls have to sign in a book with who they're going, and it's this way that Miss Warner and everybody can keep a track with who's going out with who.
The Saturday night hop, for which the girls have been excitedly preparing for hours. Certainly the temptations to make a private assignation would seem to be pretty strong, but the rule about private meetings is strictly upheld.
How strict are you about it? I mean,
very
if a
strict
couple
indeed.
were
If a girl
if
a girl cheated on that, to be sent home. I tell the parents before they come. It's a rule that's lasted 30 years. It was considered a little dangerously modern to begin with. I mean, my daughter might be allowed to walk about in the campus without anybody listening to what the boy is saying to them. I said, yes, I'm sorry, but that's the rule. And over my dead body will it be broken. If you don't like the rule, don't come here. And it worked. They came and it worked. Now some of them say, well, poor old boy, he's getting a little bit behind the times, but still, if it's a rule, it's a rule. I'm very, very strict. And it's the only rule. I say this is the thing that matters. There are a lot of minor rules, like no makeup to be used, observable makeup in the daytime. We assume they're polite, punctual, hard-working, virtuous, kind, generous, all these things. But that is a rule, and no girl expects any mercy. So you can beat a boy if he does it wrong, but you send her home. The result is I've never sent a girl home for having a private assignation.
Now, if you could all, in your present wisdom, choose all over again, would you still choose to come here for yourselves?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Much better than the last place.
But I'm very glad I went to Harrow first.
Yes.
It's invaluable. I think you get a far broader. I mean, when you get here, you feel, I feel infinitely superior to the people who've been here for years and years. You feel that they've got into a bit of a rut.
Yes, exactly.
And you feel that your horizons are far broader than the ordinary Millfield guy.
Here, I've developed more of a character. And the balance between your work and your games is so much better, and you're freer with your attitude to the masters, and therefore you work better, but yet you don't feel that you're here and you're working just for the sake of working.
Millfield publicity has centred largely on the achievements of its athletes. Anyone really outstanding has a fair chance of getting into the school, however hard up his folks. Mind you, some sports have to be paid for. Horses are expensive.
It's about 20 guineas a turn.
Unless you have your own horse here where you pay extra for the livery each week. I have my own horse here and I'm £5 a week livery, which is the same as anywhere else in the country.
How competitive is it? I mean, in most sports, Millfield try to achieve some pretty ferocious standards, don't they? What about riding? Is that more of a luxurious pastime?
Yes, it is really. I think we had quite a good go at polo. We played Cowdrey.
Competitive sport.
Yeah, we had 2 matches against Cowdrey this year. And we were very lucky we beat them both times. And they were, they were a very good team.
You're both approaching the age when you're going to leave the school, I suppose, aren't you?
Yes, I'm leaving at the end of the year.
What are you hoping to achieve by then academically?
Well, I hope to have 5 O-levels and then going on to do 2 A's as well.
Where are you going to do that?
In London, probably somewhere.
How about you?
Well, I should be leaving the end of the year. I hope to have 3 or 4 O-levels. And then I'm going probably into my father's company.
How old will you be when you leave, 18?
18 years.
The intense tutorial system extends to the sports ground too, even the polo field.
Up close here, Sack, up. Good shot. Under deck. Hit the ball both sides of the pony. Hard! On hard!
In most sports, Millfield doesn't even measure itself against other schools. International and Olympic standards are the ones they aim at. At Millfield, games are played to be won.
Height next time. Now again, balance, turn your balance off, turn in on your partner, and roll.
So, we step forward, take the blade, Jane is a counter receipt, which we go round and do the counter disengage attack. 1.
Millfield has dominated junior Wimbledon for years.
There, turn, you can come that way. You come that way and take it.
Millfield produced Gareth Edwards, scrum half for Wales.
You move, you want him to stop there. Okay. And then you people come in, you stay out a bit, tag your hand in, you're not resting.
Boss himself was a Cambridge cricket blue, a county golf captain and a fair performer at 5 other games. And dedication is part of his treatment.
The games playing, well, I don't know, it can do us harm. People don't want to play us because we're too good, and that's embarrassing. But the thing is, I used to enjoy hitting balls about. I wasn't particularly good at it, but I enjoyed it, and I like seeing them hit properly, and therefore it irritates me to see lots of coaches being employed on nothing but duffers and middle-of-the-road people. I want to see the best having an opportunity. Well, you see, here we teach anybody within 50 miles for free anything they want to learn in the way of game, if they have any promise. And the country needs them. I like to see them. And of course, it doesn't do us any harm to be shown to have nailed our colours to the mast. We mean business. When a boy says, I want to play tennis, I want to play golf, I say, well, are you ready to work till your fingers bleed? The girl thinks she's going to get into the England badminton team without really dedicating herself and sweating. She's making a mistake. I don't want anything to do with it. But I'm after those Americans and Australians. People ask me why, do you hate Australians and Americans? I say, no, I love them. I love them for being there. That gives us something to work for. So bring them down. One of these days we will.